In a frankly stunning tone shift, the Fox Propaganda Network actually assembled an anti-Trump panel from its talent, including liberal Fox News commentator Jessica Tarlo, but also two legendary Republican commentators, Rove and Brit Hume. This is awesome, and I can't wait for you to see the clips. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, before we jump into things, as the setting is a bit different, that's because I'm in Chicago for the Democratic National Convention. I'm looking forward to providing you as much content as I possibly can with my buddies at Progressive Victory and also people like Adam Mockler, fellow content creator. But I have several clips to show you from, again, what might be the coolest Fox News panel I've ever seen, because not only does it include Jessica Tarlo, our queen, as you know, we're the unofficial Jessica Tarlo fan club, but also includes legendary Republican operatives who are critical of Donald Trump. It's great stuff. And we're actually going to start with this first. In particular, this is Brit Hume, legendary, infamous, curmudgeonly Fox News pro-Republican commentator. And, well, he gives MAGA something that they don't want to hear.
Here's another Fox News poll we have out this week. How do you feel about how things are going in the country? 65% say they're dissatisfied. So, Brit, knowing that and knowing in this setup, Trump is the challenger, why is he not doing better?
Because he's Trump. I mean, the truth of the matter is...
And the show is over. Brit has dropped the mic.
I mean, you get down to it, the past 8 to 10 years have been about Donald Trump. Everything's been about Donald Trump. I don't think that the Democrats would have let Joe Biden get as far as he did if the party hadn't been confident that the Republicans were going to nominate Donald Trump again, which the Republicans did. The fact that Biden was doing even as well as he did until the very end is testament to the fact that Donald Trump, he has a very hard, solid base of support, but it never gets above about 40 to 45%, maybe a little more at best. So his weakness is the predicate for our politics going back three elections. He was able to surmount Hillary Clinton, a uniquely unpopular opponent, but he couldn't beat Biden. And, you know, you look at the losses in the midterms, or the disappointing results in the midterms, it's all about one thing. It's about that Donald Trump, no matter how enthusiastic his supporters are, nonetheless is not a majority candidate.
Folks, I don't know about you, but I just love to hear when a pro-Republican Fox News host who desperately wants Donald Trump to win just busts out some bad news for and Trump supporters and the Fox News viewers and MAGA in general. It's great stuff. But it's not just Brit Hume. It's also Rove, the Darth Vader of Bush-era politics. He was a top political advisor to George W. Bush. He's become a Fox News commentator. Again, a lifelong conservative Republican who wants Trump to win. And he also echoes some of Brit Hume's sentiments.
He might win, but he's not a majority candidate.
Well, and Carl, you heard that I read part of your piece with Senator Vance, and he says the president is listening to everyone. They're willing to take input. Do you think that's true of this campaign? And do you think they're going to have a shakeup in leadership in the campaign?
Well, first of all, he does listen to a lot of people, but the person he listens to is the inner voice. And we see it in these rallies, which are a particularly undisciplined form of communications. Look, think about it. 2/3 of the American people think we're going in the wrong direction. He leads on the issue of who's better on the economy, who's better on inflation, who's better on the immigration. That's all good numbers for him. And yet this race today, he's behind. And why is he behind? Because he is making this race about things other than the three big issues in this campaign: the economy, inflation, and immigration. And
he's right. I mean, listen, I don't look a gift horse in the mouth, but the fact of the matter is, whether we like it or not, Donald Trump and the Republicans enjoy a polling and perception advantage on many issues, even though they shouldn't. The economy is something we talk about quite a bit. To the extent that any president is responsible for the American economy, the macroeconomic metrics are almost always better when Democrats are in power, not Republicans. The same thing between Trump and President Biden. President Biden has created more jobs, even if you control for the pandemic. He's created about 90,000 more jobs per month than Donald Trump pre-pandemic. So even if you grade Trump on a curve, which we don't do here at Pondering Politics, number one, because it's dishonest, and number two, because the Republicans would never do it for us if the shoe was on the other foot. So we're not going to be particularly charitable here. But that's jobs. GDP growth was higher. It's been higher under President Biden than it ever was under Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, remember, inherited a good economy from President Obama, who had to clean up the mess from Rove's boss, George W. Bush, because the Great Recession was triggered as the Bush administration was winding down. That's modern economic history. Democrats cleaning up messes left for them by Republicans. And yet, Republicans enjoy a perception issue or advantage on the issue of the economy. We talked about immigration, too. They also enjoy a perception advantage on immigration, even though they deliberately, maliciously sabotaged a conservative bipartisan border bill that was designed to help address issues at the southern border, but they wanted to cynically use it as a wedge issue. Progressives, basically, I mean, it's not like we didn't get anything, but certainly conservative Republicans got more than progressive Democrats in that deal, but that wasn't good enough for Republicans, and nothing would ever have been good enough because Donald Trump wanted to use the border as a wedge issue. But he's right that generally speaking, Trump is pulling ahead of the vice president on these issues, and yet he's still losing the election. And so much of it is because he is an eminently unlikable and unpopular figure who's never broached 50%. Donald Trump has always been less popular than his Democratic opponent. Hillary Clinton in 2016, Joe Biden in 2020, and now Vice President Harris as well. Last clip, save the best for last. Jessica Tarlo, the Fox News liberal commentator, the voice of sanity at Fox. She's also on this panel, and this is what she has to say.
She recovered from that stumble.
Yeah, and Jessica, it's hard to make a stumble if everything is scripted.
I don't think that that's fair for a candidate that's 3.5 weeks old. I believe the story that Joe Biden said and the Biden campaign said that this was his decision that he made it on Saturday night. And by Sunday, he turned it over to her. She worked the phones, right? She was calling hundreds and hundreds of people to get the endorsement. And now she's out on her own. And she agrees with a lot of what Biden, top of the ticket, had put out there, but she is finding her own way and she's changing the policies a little bit. And I know that she's been paying attention to the fact, especially on the economy, that she has room to change people's minds. They don't know her as well. They associate the inflation with Joe Biden. They don't associate it in the same way with Kamala Harris. And we're seeing that in the Fox News Tracker poll and the issues, right? Donald Trump is losing ground on the economy, on immigration, and I couldn't believe it. The crime, he only leads by 5 points. That's basically within the margin of error. Those are the bread and butter issues for him. And at the same time, she is adding to where Joe Biden was. Look at the abortion issue, which is the number one issue for a lot of Democrats. He was plus 12. She's plus 18. And it turns out listening to a woman talk about reproductive health makes a difference to people. And then you have J.D. Vance on the other side with the childless cat lady stuff. And I'm feeling pretty good about where we are.
Okay, so let me put.
As am I, Jessica. As am I. She's going to be at the DNC. There are many people that I hope to meet and engage with here at the Democratic National Convention. She is one of them. Because again, I think job in legacy media in particular. But yeah, listen, phenomenal panel, right? And again, it's not that I like Brit Hume. I think Brit Hume is awful. I think Karl Rove is awful in his own right. But occasionally a broken clock is right, twice a day. And they happen to be right on Donald Trump, even though they desperately want Trump to win. This election is going to be close. Again, I use this example, but we don't elect presidents by way of popular vote. Remember, President Biden won the popular vote by 7 million votes, but he won the Electoral College by distribution of about 44 to 45,000 people in a handful of swing states. It's very likely that this election will be even closer still, so it's possible for us to lose. It wouldn't be the first time that a Democrat won the popular vote and a Republican won the presidency by way of the Electoral College. So we can't take any of this for granted. The momentum may very well shift in the weeks after the Democratic National Convention, but in addition to enjoying the moment, enjoying the optimism, enjoying the surge of energy. We also have to just acknowledge that Trump is making one blunder after another. I mean, yes, the vice president has proven to be a dynamic candidate, and the Democratic operatives, the Democratic apparatus is moving very tight, right? It's running a tight ship, but also so much of this is because Donald Trump is just a freaking idiot. He's just an unlikable moron with a terrible, terrible record. And I don't see that changing. I mean, getting back to the second clip in which Shannon Bream asked Karl Rove, like, hey, Corey Lewandowski and others were pulled in. There might be some shakeup in the Trump campaign. Do you think that Trump will heed sound advice? And Karl Rove said it best. He's like, more than likely, Trump is just going to listen to Trump or people who say Trump things to Trump, right? The fact of the matter is there are smart Republicans. I've said it before and I'll say again, Chris LaCivita, one of Trump's top campaign advisors, he helped create a relatively disciplined Trump campaign. The Trump campaign, for the most part, until President Biden dropped out of the race, was relatively tight and disciplined. It was because people like Chris LaCivita, these professional political operatives, were running the show, and Trump was mostly content to defer to them or to not get in their way. Now, because Trump is panicked, he's terrified, he's actively undoing the work of people like Chris LaCivita. He's pulling in the likes of Corey Lewandowski, and he is giving in to his id, his worst impulses. which is great for the rest of us. So hopefully he'll continue to do that and it'll cost him the election. In the meantime, I also hope we'll get to see more Fox News panels like this where they're actually critical of Donald Trump. It's great stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments.